Ken has $320,000 in his retirement accounts. Maya has $42,000. They earn almost the same salary. They live in the same city. They've both been working for over 15 years. And the gap between them has almost nothing to do with income. It has everything to do with 4 money moves Ken makes that Maya doesn't. Nobody taught him these moves. No financial advisor sat him down. He learned them the hard way, by watching everything go wrong for the generation before him and deciding, quietly, that it would never happen to him. And when you see what those 4 moves actually are, and what they cost Maya by not making them, you're going to want to steal every single one. If you watched our video on the money trap every generation falls for, you already know these 2. Ken, 52, Gen X, Maya, 38, Millennial. Last time, we looked at the trap each generation walks into. The arrival signal. The lifestyle that looks like success but quietly replaces actually building it. Today we're flipping the lens, because Gen X doesn't just fall into traps, they also do something with money that other generations don't. And when you put real numbers on it, the results aren't close. We're also bringing in Zoe, 24, Gen Z. She's the most financially literate person in her family. She knows what an index fund is. She talks about compound interest casually. She's already investing. On paper, she's ahead of where Maya was at 24. But there's a gap forming that she can't see yet. Here's the baseline. Ken earns $85,000 a year. Maya earns $78,000. Zoe earns $48,000. We'll adjust for career stage where it matters. But the core point of this video isn't about who earns more, it's about who keeps more and what they do with what they keep. 4 moves, real dollar math. Let's go. It's 2001. Ken is 27 years old, 3 years into a solid job at a mid-sized company. Good reviews, steady paycheck. He's starting to feel like he's got the hang of this whole career thing. Then he watches a guy named Bill, 20 years at the company, corner desk, knew everyone's birthday, get walked out with a cardboard box on a Tuesday. No warning, no real severance, just a security escort and a form letter. Ken went home that night and opened a high-yield savings account. He's never let it drop below 5 figures since. That's the origin. Now here's the math. Ken keeps 6 to 8 months of expenses in cash at all times. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Household Economics, Gen X has the highest rate of emergency fund adequacy of any working generation. Not the highest savings in total, boomers have more, but the highest rate of having enough cash to cover an unexpected expense without borrowing. Maya has about 1 month of expenses saved. That's typical for millennials according to the same Fed data. Most have less than $2,000 in liquid emergency savings. Zoe has a few $100s. She's investing $50 a month in index funds, which is smart, but she has almost no cash buffer underneath it. Now watch what happens when life hits. And it always hits. A $4,000 emergency. Car breaks down, medical bill, emergency flight home. Pick your version. Everyone gets one eventually. Ken writes a check. Done. His investment plan doesn't skip a beat. His 401k contribution stays the same. Nothing changes. Maya puts it on a credit card at 24% APR. She plans to pay it off in a few months, but minimum payments and other bills slow her down. It takes her 14 months. That $4,000 becomes roughly $4,700. And during those 14 months, she pauses her retirement contributions to free up cash flow. So she's not just paying interest, she's losing compound growth on the money she didn't invest. Zoe splits it across 2 buy now, pay later apps. She makes the payments, but it eats her discretionary budget for 4 months. And she quietly stops her $50 monthly investment because the timing feels tight. She'll restart it eventually. Probably. 1 emergency. 3 completely different financial outcomes. But here's the part nobody calculates. This doesn't happen once. On average, Americans face a financial emergency roughly every 12 to 18 months. A car repair, a medical bill, a job gap, a broken appliance. Over a 15-year career, that's 10 to 12 of these events. Ken absorbs all of them in cash. His investment plan never flinches. Maya borrows for most of them. Each time she pays interest and pauses investing. The compound cost of those pauses, the growth she missed, not just the interest she paid, adds up to roughly $35,000 to $45,000 in lost portfolio value over 15 years. Not because she's careless, because she didn't have a buffer. The emergency fund isn't sexy. Nobody's making TikToks about a savings account with $15,000 in it. But it's the move that protects every other move. And Gen X figured that out the hard way. Ken remembers his parents in 1993. Dad got the promotion. Mom went back to work. For the first time, there was real money coming in. New car in the driveway, new TV in the living room, the kitchen renovation they'd been talking about for years. It felt like they'd finally made it. Then the company downsized. Dad's department got cut. The car payment didn't get cut. The renovation loan didn't get cut. The lifestyle they'd built on the bigger income was still running, but the income underneath it was gone. Ken never forgot that. Raises disappear, but the lifestyle you build on them doesn't. Now here's what this looks like in dollars. All three of them get a $5,000 raise. Same dollar amount, same moment. Watch what they do with it. Ken bumps his lifestyle by about half. Maybe he upgrades his phone plan, eats out one extra time a week. That's roughly $2,500 a year in new spending. The other $2,500 goes straight into his 401k. He barely notices the difference in his day-to-day life because the lifestyle change was small and the savings bump was automatic. Maya upgrades her apartment. She's been wanting a place with in-unit laundry, and the new raise finally makes it feel affordable. The rent increase is about $200 a month, $2,400 a year. Add in a slightly nicer gym membership and a couple of upgraded subscriptions, and the entire raise is absorbed. Her savings rate doesn't move. She's earning more than ever and keeping the same percentage as before. Zoe splits it thoughtfully. Or at least it feels thoughtful. She bumps her investment contribution by $20 a month and uses the rest for lifestyle. That's about $240 a year more invested and $4,760 more spent. She's proud of the investment increase. But the ratio is 95% lifestyle, 5% savings. Now run this forward 15 years. Assume each of them gets a raise like this roughly every 2 to 3 years. Ken, banking $2,500 per raise and investing it at 10% average annual returns, has built an additional $130,000 to $150,000 in wealth purely from the habit of splitting raises. That's on top of his normal savings, just from this one behavior. Maya banked nothing from her raises. Her lifestyle grew exactly as fast as her income. She looks more successful. Nicer apartment, better neighborhood, newer car. But her net worth didn't grow any faster than it would have without the raises at all. Zoe's extra $240 a year invested gives her about $7,000 to $9,000 over 15 years. Not nothing. But compared to Ken's $130,000 from the exact same raises, that's the gap. This is lifestyle creep, and technically all three of them have it. The difference is the speed. Ken creeps slowly and banks the difference. Maya and Zoe creep at the speed of their income. And over 15 years, slow creep versus fast creep is the difference between a 6-figure portfolio boost and a nicer apartment you can't remember why you needed. Ken was 14 when he found the credit card statements in the kitchen drawer. His mom had 3 cards. Minimum payments on all of them. Revolving balances that never seemed to go down. She wasn't reckless. She was doing her best. But the math just stopped working 1 month and never started again. Ken has never carried a credit card balance in his life. Not once. Now here's the part that seems contradictory. According to Experian, Gen X carries the highest total debt of any generation. More than boomers. More than millennials. So how is Ken the disciplined one? Because of what the debt is attached to. Ken's debt is a $350,000 mortgage at a fixed rate. That's it. No car payment. He drives a paid-off 2017 Camry with 140,000 miles on it. No credit card balance carried month to month. His total monthly debt service goes toward exactly one thing, an asset that's appreciating. Maya's debt profile looks different. She has $14,000 remaining on her student loans. Ayasaj sees $22,000 car loan at 6.5% on a 3-year-old SUV. and a rotating credit card balance that hovers between $3,000 and $5,000 depending on the month. Her total monthly debt service on non-asset debt, meaning debt attached to things that are losing value or have no resale value at all, is about $620 a month. Zoe doesn't have traditional debt in the old sense, but she's running about $800 across 3 buy now, pay later plans at any given time. A phone upgrade, a furniture purchase, a clothing haul. The payments are small individually, but they add up to about $150 a month in obligations that are always being replaced by new ones. It's a debt treadmill that doesn't show up on a credit report but never actually stops. Here's the math that should make your stomach drop. Maya's $620 a month in non-asset debt service. If she'd been investing that instead in a total market index fund averaging 10% annual returns over 10 years, she'd have roughly $127,000. Over 15 years, over $250,000. That's not theoretical money. That's what that cash flow would have actually produced in the market. She's not spending $620 a month. She's spending $620 a month plus the $127,000 to $250,000 it would have become. That's the real cost of casual debt, not the interest rate, the opportunity cost. Ken understood this instinctively. Or more accurately, he understood it because he watched it destroy his mother's finances in real time. So he made a rule. Borrow for assets that go up in value. Pay cash for everything else. It's not complicated, but it's the single biggest reason his retirement accounts are 6 figures ahead of Maya's. The lesson isn't never borrow. It's know exactly what your borrowing is attached to. If the answer is something that's going up, you're leveraging. If the answer is something that's going down or already gone, you're leaking. And the leak, over time, is catastrophic. It's 1997. Ken is 23. He's watching the evening news with his dad, and there it is again. Another round of layoffs at one of the big employers in town. His dad's friends, guys who gave 25 years to one company, are suddenly scrambling at 55. No backup plan, no second income, just a resume they haven't updated since the 80s and a pension that may or may not be there when they need it. Ken decided then, maybe not consciously, maybe not in those words, that he'd never let one paycheck be the only thing between him and the floor. Not because he was entrepreneurial, because he was terrified. And that quiet terror turned into the most profitable habit of his financial life. Federal Reserve data shows Gen X has higher rates of self-employment and secondary income streams than both millennials and Gen Z. But here's the twist. Most of them still keep their day jobs. They're not quitting to pursue their passion. They're building a second income in the most boring, unglamorous way possible. Ken does consulting on the side. Same field he works in during the day. Operations management. No brand, no website, no social media presence. Just a handful of small companies that pay him $800 a month for about 5 hours of work because he knows their systems better than they do. He puts every dollar of that $800 into his brokerage account, not his checking, not his vacation fund, directly into investments. He's been doing this for 12 years. Maya has tried 3 side hustles since her late 20s, a freelance writing gig that dried up after 6 months, an online course she spent $1,200 building that made $300 in total sales, a brief attempt at reselling vintage clothing that turned into an expensive hobby. Right now, her secondary income is 0. She's not a failure, she just kept chasing side hustles that were exciting but unsustainable, instead of building something boring that compounds. Zoe has an Etsy shop selling custom phone cases. It brings in about $200 a month in revenue. After materials, shipping, and the time she spends on it, her net profit is roughly $50 a month. She talks about it on her Instagram. It's part of her brand. But as an income stream, it's essentially a break-even hobby. Now the math. Ken's $800 a month invested at 10% average annual returns over 12 years is approximately $184,000. Over 15 years, that's roughly $250,000 to $270,000. From a boring consulting gig nobody would ever post about. No ring light, no content calendar. Just a guy who answers emails on Sunday mornings and invests the check. Maya's secondary income over the same period. Net negative. She spent more building side hustles than she made from them. Zoe's $50 a month net over 15 years. Invested. About $20,000 to $23,000. Not nothing, but compared to Ken's $250,000, it's barely a rounding error. The difference isn't talent. It's strategy. Ken monetized a skill he already had in a way that required no content, no audience, and no startup cost. He picked boring over exciting, consistent over viral, and invisible over impressive. And the market turned that boring consistency into $250,000. If this video was just Gen X is right about everything, it wouldn't be honest. And if it's not honest, it's not useful. So let's talk about where Ken's instincts actually cost him money. Gen X is the least likely generation to use a financial advisor. They'd rather figure it out themselves. And honestly, the independence is understandable. They watched what happened when their parents trusted experts with their pensions and their retirement plans. The trust just isn't there, but that DIY instinct has a cost. Ken manages his own portfolio. He rebalances when he remembers to, which is about once a year. He's never done tax loss harvesting. He's paying slightly higher expense ratios on some funds because he picked them 10 years ago and hasn't compared options since. He doesn't use a robo-advisor or even a low-cost advisory service because the whole concept of handing his money to a platform feels uncomfortably close to the thing he swore he'd never do. The result? His $320,000 portfolio is sitting at a 60-40 stock-to-bond allocation. For a 52-year-old with a stable income and a long time horizon, most financial planners would recommend closer to 80-20. That difference, 20% more in equities over the past 15 years, Beth, would have added roughly $50,000 to $80,000 to his portfolio. Money he left on the table because he was too cautious, because caution is what kept him alive. There's an irony here. The same distrust that made Ken build an emergency fund, control his lifestyle, avoid bad debt, and diversify his income, that same distrust also made him underinvest in the one asset class that would have rewarded his patience the most. Gen X's superpower and their blind spot come from the same place. They just don't trust the system. And most of the time, that's exactly right. But the stock market, over 20-year periods, has never lost money. And being too afraid to lean into that is the one place where their fear costs them. Let's stack it up. 4 moves, real numbers, same incomes. Move 1, the emergency fund. Ken's buffer let him invest without interruption for 15 years. Maya's lack of one cost her $35,000 to $45,000 in lost portfolio growth from paused contributions and interest paid on emergency debt. Move 2, the lifestyle ceiling. Ken banked half of every raise. Over 15 years, that habit alone built $130,000 to $150,000 in additional wealth. Maya banked none. Zoe banked almost none. Move 3, strategic debt. Maya's $620 a month in non-asset debt over 15 years represents $250,000 in opportunity cost. Ken put that same cash flow into his 401k. Move 4, the boring second income. Ken's $800 a month consulting gig, fully invested for 15 years, became $250,000 to $270,000. Maya's various side hustle attempts netted $0. Zoe's netted about $20,000. Added up, the gap between Ken and Maya isn't $278,000. Ken's $320,000 portfolio minus Maya's, $42,000. The real gap is the cumulative wealth difference created by 4 simple behavioral patterns repeated consistently over 15 to 20 years. When you stack all 4 moves, the total difference is somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 in net worth. On similar incomes. In the same city. With the same number of working years, that's not a gap you close by getting a better job or picking a better stock. That's a gap created entirely by how each of them treated the money they already had. But here's the thing I need you to understand. Ken's behaviors didn't come from a book. They came from pain. He watched the system fail the generation before him. The layoffs, the lost pensions, the credit card debt that swallowed his parents. And he adapted. Every single one of these moves is a scar that turned into a strategy. Maya and Zoe didn't see those things up close. They didn't have the same painful education, and that's not their fault. But the good news is, you don't have to live through the lesson to learn from it. You can choose the behavior without waiting for the pain. You don't have to be Gen X to use Gen X money moves. You just have to be willing to look less successful today so you can actually be successful tomorrow. Build the buffer, split the raise, kill the casual debt, start the boring side income. 4 moves. None of them flashy, all of them devastating over time. If this changed how you think about your money, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to see us break down the full math on any one of these moves in its own video, tell me which one in the comments. Your money habits aren't random. They're either borrowed from the generation that raised you or chosen by the person you're becoming. Make sure you know which one you're running.